Good evening, listeners. We're back here at Matriarchal Voices from Matriarchal Times. I welcome back Mina Sharif, who is one of our advisors for Matriarchy Times. And she's here today because she has written an amazing story called Your War, Our Lives. So I think the title itself speaks very deeply about how much she wants to take the stereotypes of Afghanistan away through her storytelling. So I invite Mina Sharif now to say hello and talk a little bit about her story from her point of view. Hi, Mina.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me. Thank you for taking the time to read the book. That's very kind of you, especially being part of the team. I really respect the perspective that you guys approach things with. Matriarchy being a word that people associate only with gender, but that's not it. It's really more about how a society treats its people and about how a system is set up to treat its people. So that's one of the reasons I really enjoy being part of this team. Um, and I guess I will introduce the book by sharing that it was a collection of short stories that I wrote. Honestly, not with the intention of creating a collection of short stories, but because I would write one to sort of get a story written for my own memory's sake, as I was kind of seeing the narrative of Afghanistan be all over the place and always missing what I cared most about, which was the people and their lives and um, what that really looked like, especially during those 20 years, because it was really being rewritten as either a glorious era with no problems or as a time when absolutely nothing good happened. And it was neither of those things. So I started writing it, and as I had friends, Afghan friends specifically, uh, it resonated with them and with a few others. I just got motivated to write more, and I have more as well. Um, and the reason I kind of took the leap to publish it is because my dear friends at Art Lords, who do gorgeous art, which accompanies each of the short stories, um, they have just a sense of social commentary in 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 within each piece of art, similar to what I hoped my short stories had. And so when I had them beside me, I thought, okay, let's just put this together and do something that I haven't seen before, which is um, a sort of like mix of advocacy and storytelling in a book.
I like how through your stories, you completely managed to change how I think about Afghanistan. And I'm sure it's going to change how a lot of people think about Afghanistan in general. Because when you talk about a country in general, there's usually a very accepted preconceived notion about how things are happening there. Like we have we have those for each country from our point of view. So for Afghanistan, unfortunately, it hasn't been getting a good reputation at all. And there's so much beauty and culture in there that seems to have been lost because of the actions of a few.
Hmm. I couldn't be more flattered. Like that's really the point. And it's not me alone. I mean, even on Instagram and on TikTok, you see other Afghans who either were raised abroad or were raised in Afghanistan really tried to bring to light more about who we are. Because we've really been dehumanized to that point that people just associate us with keywords like war, suffering, poverty, violence, suicide bombs, like every kind of, negative. And so all of us have this extra burden on us, and we can either take it as something that we're very upset about, and then it comes out angry, and you come out just like
Yes.
lecturing people and yelling at them, or sometimes people get tired and they just walk away from the identity part and say, like, it is what it is. And I was looking for somewhere in the middle to land where it's like, I don't want to defend us to anyone because I don't think
Mhm.
we should have to do that. But I would like to give people an opportunity to get more curious about Afghanistan.
Yeah, and it was, I'll just tell you some of my favorite parts. The one was where that one character, I won't even mention which story or which character, it was just, she just mentions that bowling didn't originate in the US, that it originated in Egypt. So that help that kind of speaks to more than just people in Afghanistan. That speaks to a lot about how America has tried to uh, make everything about them. And they've done it to an extent where people don't even question it anymore, and they just think, it's America and everything is from America and this is Western. And it's interesting to know that other cultures don't hold America on like a pedestal.
Well, they do, unfortunately, but like not,
Yes.
where I think a lot is being undone, right? Like a lot of
Hmm.
younger people, and that's the power of education and the power of like, I think we see all the negatives of social media discussed all the time, but it also connects us to each other and we learn about each other and we start to real like think that's this big change that's happening is coming from people learning from each other that it's not just like global south poor and backwards, global north very advanced, everything
Yeah.
futuristic and good comes from there. And that's something that happens with colonization is we start to internalize it as well. And what I have
Mhm.
really enjoyed in my experience in Afghanistan was seeing young people, and I'm sure it was happening all over the world in different ways, but I happened to be in Afghanistan where I was seeing young Afghans challenge that and say,
Mhm.
where is the perfection that everyone's talking about? And that line is that it's a truth. The bowling was not invented in America. And I heard a ton of people say Afghanistan was being Americanized with that reference of a bowling alley. And I said, well, it's
Yeah.
more like it's being Egyptianized, but
Yeah.
okay.
And also, the photograph of the eyes, that photograph that got famous through National Geographic, specifically that, because that was something that I had with me from the time I was very small, because I used to get the National Geographic magazine, and this was an insert in one of the editions, like 10 pictures, 10 amazing pictures from around the world. Or I don't really remember what that booklet pamphlet thing was called, but the last picture was the picture of the, I'm pretty sure, like it's that picture. I know it was that, and like, and then to see that it was nothing special. That apparently it's nothing new in Afghanistan to have eyes like that, and the whole world was amazed by just one photograph, and people in Afghanistan were just like, "Why?"
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I won't lie. I had that photo on my wall when I was a teenager because I'm like, oh, look, an Afghan woman. And then other photos from that same issue of National Geographic were on my
Yeah.
wall. I cut them out and
Hmm.
put them up. Um, but you go and take a walk in a village in Afghanistan, you're going to see at least six kids with the same eyes as that woman, which is not to say they're not beautiful. They're not rare. And also there's a very like ugly tone to how that photo was taken. She didn't,
Hmm.
she wasn't like giving consent to it. She wasn't given any like royalties from how it was the most famous photo in the world, arguably.
Yeah.
And which is not, I don't fully blame the photographer, but at the end of the day, one thing I take as fact is it was not that big a deal. And we were just kind of, the fact that she had such beautiful eyes was not that rare, is what I'm trying to say. And the fact that we were sort of, like tokenized that way, just
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
this
Hmm.
little look at this beauty we found in the rubble of Afghanistan. So,
Yeah.
beautiful tropes.
So I was, yeah. So now I don't want to ruin any more of the stories. So I'm just going to say that um, that was not all of it, but I think that if the more I speak, the more I'm going to reveal like very nice plot twists and very nice things that I want people to discover in your book by themselves without me saying it before. So,
Oh, thank you.
um,
You're welcome to discuss it, especially because I think a lot of the themes carry across into what Matriarchy Times works on and support.
mhm. But I'd like to, if you don't mind, get your opinion right now on what what you see happening. Like we see that women are being mistreated and women are being oppressed and they are having a really bad time because of the Taliban. So what do you see, like as an Afghan and also as someone who's living outside of Afghanistan?
I mean, I see it as more systematically supported by the rest of the world, which is why we get so upset. It's not that we're just saying everybody come save the Afghan women. We're saying stop uplifting this oppression. And that's, I think, the key part of the story that people miss when they look at the suffering and they look at um, the latest decrees against women. They'll just hear it and think that they have nothing to do with it, but you do in a sense because it's governments that keep these guys alive. They keep them afloat. They interact with governments from all over the world. They get money. They sell Afghanistan's goods and get money. There's just a lot of responsibility um, that I think people are ignoring. That as citizens, we are all playing a role in how other citizens are treated. At the end of the day, we are. We can make demands, and politics just can't be ignored from it. And we're all part of how politics plays out. As far as like how it's going in Afghanistan, I think what makes it so complicated, or I don't even like that word, but I think what makes it so um the
Nuanced?
wrong no, what I'm saying is what it gives the wrong impression of what's going on
Mm,
is that we have people that they're very, I think the Taliban are very mindful of how they appear, right? So a lot of women can go and visit and they won't be harassed on the street necessarily. A lot of women can walk without a male escort with them and they're okay. Visually it might look, like kind of okay. If you go for 2 weeks, you might have a great time as these cheesy YouTube tourist people as they do.
yes.
But I think it's so disrespectful to look at it based on what you saw with your eyes and what you experienced for a week or two, because consciously that the law doesn't protect you as a woman. So you wouldn't live there. And what matters is how a law is protecting its citizens. It doesn't matter how the tourist felt and how visually you saw that in this moment this person was not arrested. Therefore, it must be fine here. It's a matter of what is the law doing? Because if they feel like it, they could snatch every woman on that street and put her in jail. That's the problem. The problem is the lack of protection from the leadership of women and their decision to stop them from things like school, exercise, businesses, and certain studies, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not visually what you see versus what is the law? What are the protections for citizens? And people aren't looking at it that way enough.
Mhm. Okay, so if they are keeping a position in which they can at any moment eradicate women effectually from the society, what is the purpose? Like, what is their plan? How do they plan to sustain this goal of theirs?
I can only hypothesize. They don't understand how the
Yeah.
Taliban brain works. But I know that at the end of the day, based on just my point of view, is that leaderships, governments, pseudo governments, whatever they are, whatever others are very fixated on opportunity for their own financial gain, for their own control, right? And one of the easiest ways to maintain control over a country, which you're not loyal to, they're obviously not putting the citizens life quality as a priority. But when you don't have that priority, then shutting down 50% of the population is one of the ways to keep control over the other things you do want to control.
Mhm.
Keeping them at home, keeping them uneducated is a great way to ensure that you can continue your wheelings and dealings and make your money off of Afghanistan. So this is how I see it. Other people might see it as a much more ideological plan that they have. Like they truly, in their deep in their hearts, they just are so passionate about shutting down the life of women. But I'm a little more I think a little more broadly personally, and I think that it's not so much about the women themselves as keeping a country in as much control as possible. And we all know studies have shown that how women are treated in a society is very reflective of how the society functions.
Mm. Directly linked to the quality of life.
Directly to the quality of life because an illiterate mother, a poor mother, an impoverished mother, someone who can't work, can't read, can't write, is much more likely to raise a son that you can exploit, a daughter that you can exploit, versus one that is
Mm.
educated and I don't mean school alone. I mean being part of society, being part of what's going on shifts mindsets to where you want to protect your country, and you know what that looks like.
So, are there currently any restrictions in place for girls receiving education? Has the Taliban gone that far, by your knowledge?
Yes, school is banned for girls after grade six. They're banned from studies, period. And that's 4 years.
Okay.
We've had that now. There are some university programs that they can participate in, but many that they cannot, which mean like medical, engineering, many areas of study are um, not open to women. And because that cutoff happens at after grade six, they're eventually gonna we're not gonna have any more women to enter university programs because they've all been cut off by
Mhm.
grade six. So they're whether it's slow or whether it's fast, their plan is clearly to not allow education overall for women at all. Women doctors are not allowed.
Are there any restrictions for them to go to another country for education, or is
Yes, they've gone out of their way to publicly state that that is not allowed. I mean, that happens. You can only control that to a certain degree as of now, but you know, all of the loopholes or the ways that people are finding around it are they really don't replace traditional access to education. So online classes or leaving, it still has the same harm on the country itself when women are not being educated and staying in the country to serve it.
okay? Okay, so online education is possible.
Yeah, but it's not regulated. I mean, we're that's little pockets of people, and you have to think about who has access to internet, who has a computer, who has, so
Uh,
it's absolutely not a replacement. It's just an emergency makeshift situation for some, very few girls.
and there, I've just something that we have been reading up on, like how has the impact been? I mean, it must be severe, but what has the effect been on the overall mental health of women in the country?
Yeah, I think it's as anybody would expect. There's no surprises. I mean, the only thing that I would say is surprising is just how often I speak to women who are extremely determined to keep going. I don't know where they find that will, but they do. They educate their own daughters, their own sisters, but of course they're exhausted. They're absolutely exhausted. And it's like people were complaining for so intensely about being home for COVID while they had internet and they had online shopping and they could go out for a walk if they wanted to. I mean, and these women are a lot of times none of that happens. And the more you stay locked away, the worse that depression can become. But they continue to surprise me with their determination.
So, do you know of any kind of like this sounds like something the women are doing individually in their homes with their families. But are there groups that are organizing to help each other with education? Or, I mean, if you know of anything like that, like are there people who are trying to fight back, basically, women?
But women are continue to protest for their right to education, their right to work. They do it there even without any uh, security from the potential of violence against them, potential of being locked up. They just continue to fight for it. But at the end of the day, it really requires the Taliban to feel threatened. I think financially, I think as far as access to the rest of the world, that's the only way, and the rest of the world is not doing that.
I'm just surprised that they're being allowed to continue in this way in this day and age without some international intervention happening. Because we speak about the UN, for example, they kind of are in charge of taking care of the society's welfare for the whole world, but there this huge organization called the Taliban just operating and doing what they want, and they're just getting support, like you said, from other countries, buying their products, providing them with finances. Has there ever been any sign of somebody trying to stop them? Like, help has help ever raised its head anywhere in this situation?
Like to from what level? You
I
mean,
mean, like, have there been any inquiries and investigations into what's happening, or is it just
you'll
being?
get articles or studies from Amnesty International, for example, which will confirm to you how many people are starving in Afghanistan. But these are not action. These are just, and even that wasn't happening for a long time. I mean, when you gave the example of UN, I don't have a problem with UN distributing food is if like in theory that's what they're there for. But at the same time, they suddenly don't feel like the need to monitor how it's distributed, making sure that women are have access to, and as far as and I'm not really up to date on what UN is doing, so I say this with, you know, take this with a grain of salt. Maybe they've vastly improved. However, the
Yeah.
last time I was looking into it, they really weren't. They weren't checking up on who takes it, who gets all of this when they just hand out things, who gets it, and how is it being handled? No conditions.
Yeah, I think maybe there have been some changes, but there's so much happening around the world that maybe this, since Afghanistan has always been something that people just have stereotyped as a war-torn country, maybe they don't focus much there, thinking that there's nothing much they can do. I'm just saying, like, not an expert, but I wish that there was more that people can do, because it's really sad to think that in a world where we are trying to decide what we want to study, that there are women who don't even have the op- option to study at all.
Yeah.
When was the last time that you visited Afghanistan?
I lived there until 2019, and I can't safely go back. There's been many accounts of people going, if you have said something negative about them, or negative meaning like pointing out what they've done, what they've said with their own words, that can get you in a lot of trouble there. And so I wouldn't feel comfortable going there, and I have not gone back since I.
Yeah, you told us. Anyone who wants to know the full story of Mina's journey between Afghanistan and you can check out her previous podcast, which is on our channel. So are you thinking of writing any more books, or you have any more stories to tell?
Well, I had a lot more stories, and I that's just for the practice of myself writing, but this one just came out, so on August 1st. So while I've had a very generous and kind feedback and people getting the book, which has been so kind. Now my most exciting concept to me is people reading it and then wanting to talk about it. So I'm more, it was something I wrote mainly for myself, and then it turned into how it goes with a book, I guess, often is it turns into like a logistics thing or a list of tasks to get it to the point where it's a published book. And I've been in that world for a few months, so I'm really excited to go back to the whole point of what the stories were and writing them and what people think of that or want to talk about, or if it ignites conversations or curiosity, which is what I had hoped it would.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Do you want to take this moment to tell everybody where and how they can get the book, like all the places it's available?
Oh, thank you. That would be lovely. On my website, which is just my name, minasharif.com, I do have a page with all the links, so you don't have to go all over, but there is it's available on the usual Amazon, which is great for people for convenience wise. I don't judge anyone for using it. However, if you don't like it and you don't want to support that organization, there's an option to get it from independent bookstores. If they have it, great. If they don't, you can request it because they can order it very easily. There are ebooks that are available on multiple platforms, and there will and you could buy from me directly through my website as well. You can buy through a seal.com or a seal. I might say their website wrong. So Aseel, ASEEL, which is an online shopping platform, and it's Afghan led. And you also can, once you get there, see different like carpets and dishes and art and clothing and all kinds of things made by artisans in Afghanistan. So I'm so happy to be a part of that, and they can ship it anywhere as well. And it's just lovely to be part of that atmosphere because it's all Afghan um, products and it's Afghan led. And so it's kind of just taking out the middleman of the whole process. Um, and also, too, there will be an audiobook coming in the fall, which we're working on right now.
That's great. So I hope all of you will visit Mina Sharif's website and try to get a copy of the book because as matriarchs, as feminists, we should always support female writers and read what female writers write, just so that we can see the world through a proper lens. Because it's like I've spoken with Rochi Kaye from India, and she's also an author, and she mentioned that when men write women's point of views and when women write women's point of views, it's two completely different things. And I experienced that firsthand through your book once again.
Thank you. I love hearing that. I was a little intimidated to write on behalf of people who it's not me, but I knew that I cared enough and saw enough and spent enough time to at least get a general, idea of what something may or may not have felt like. And a lot of that is me as well. A lot of the experiences in there were firsthand, just told through a different perspective. So thank you. It's important to me that Afghan women are represented and looked at in a way that isn't through the lens of a man.
Okay, so now I'm curious to know which stories were yours, but obviously I'm not going to ask you that.
You can.
So,
You're allowed to ask me anything you want. I think some of the obvious ones is the diaspora who comes to visit Afghanistan and she's very excited about everything. That is a little bit, I'm making fun of myself a little bit in that, but that's definitely. There's a non-Afghan, so a foreign woman at one point who gives toys in a orphanage.
uh-huh.
I was that naive myself. So like a lot of actually I almost want to say a lot of the less appealing characters, like that's when it was more about accountability of people, maybe something I saw a friend do or some way that I thought myself or um So a lot of those were my experiences, and some of them I was the recipient of the bad behavior. So a lot of those were me too.
So basically, none of the stories were made up,
They're all
like
based on
completely fictional.
how I would put they're all fictional, but how I would say it is I wasn't guessing. I never paused and felt the need like let me go research or let me talk to someone or let me this
Mhm.
is very much based on my lived experience. I felt very confident in what I was saying because I had either seen it firsthand or experienced it firsthand or like watched it happen multiple times firsthand. So I knew that I wasn't just making something up. Um, which I could do because it's fiction, but I really felt like I wanted to offer some sense of what I actually did see and did experience. But yeah, characters are mixes of people, and settings are mixes sometimes of settings, but they're all real.
Then there's just one more thing I want to ask you about, and it's easy, don't worry. The title itself, like Your War, Our Lives. I know that I'm getting some kind of a meaning from it, but what was your meaning behind putting that on the cover of this book, saying Your War and Our Lives?
I don't know. I think I was debating between, do you give it a pretty and lyrical title, which most books have, um, and I had one and I really liked it. It was pretty but I don't know. I think I wanted to put a sense of literal, like this is literally what it is. The fact is that the war did not belong to the people of Afghanistan, but the lives did. Every life of a person from Afghanistan is affected by war, whether even the ones who were born and raised in another country and never saw Afghanistan, don't even speak the language, maybe have only one parent who is Afghan. It doesn't matter. You were affected because the migration has affected all of us. The war itself has made us lose family members. And a lot of the other examples that are in the book are the different ways that war affects us, but also the story of how we live is separate from the war. So that's why I
Mhm.
wanted to say, like, the war is not, it doesn't have a belonging to Afghanistan. It's just something that happened to Afghanistan. It's not who Afghanistan is. Afghanistan is not war. It's people. It's regular lives.
I like the title. It's a statement on the cover itself. It's like a story in itself, right on the cover, like just
Thank,
before you start.
thank you. Good. I wasn't 100% on it, so I'm glad you like it.
So there's something you might like to look up. I'm not sure exactly how 100% scientific or anything this is, but I've heard that trauma can be passed through people's DNA, like from parents to kids, like trauma itself.
Generation.
So when you say that the kids who were not even born or raised in Afghanistan but who belong to Afghan parents, so maybe that factors in as well. But I
Absolutely.
don't know enough to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's something that a lot of Afghans, especially outside of Afghanistan, are looking into and sharing more about because we obviously have it. We have a lot of, and it's scientifically proven. It's not like a guess that we're having. Like your nervous system is set up differently than someone. In the same way that famine changes people's physical makeup generations onward, the family is affected by famine because it you just the body adapts, the mind adapts. So we have a lot of fight or flight in that war brings in our systems, a lot of survival instincts that come within our nervous systems. But even the more literal stuff, right? Like born and raised outside, because you don't get a chance to connect with a land that is ancestral to you and that you have deep rooted connections to. You don't get to have that. So you're also affected by the war immensely. Like it changes
Yeah.
literally who you are. So I think on that micro level of literally your blood cells are affected, but also on the macro of how your life looks is affected by war.
Mhm. Okay, so I think question wise, I asked you everything I have to ask. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we wind up for today?
Um, I mean, no, I will say on fiction and why I chose to write fiction was to be welcoming. I don't want people to think that this book or anything that I do, I hope, is meant to tell you how to think or be upset at anyone for not knowing about Afghanistan or having minimal knowledge. The point is to start shifting that and to invite people to connect on an emotional level with Afghanistan, which I don't see a lot of opportunities for. Emotionally, we connect with Afghans as victims of war or heroes that survived war, which is fine and great. But if we only have that, then that doesn't make us look like real people. It just makes it look like um, glamorized, sensationalized stories at all times. And we just have regular days that if you, I think, connect with and learn about, it will make you feel closer to Afghanistan. That was my whole point. So it's not to hold anyone accountable for what they don't know. I hope the book does that. If you are kind enough to read it, that's what I'm hoping for. And that's also, if you do read it, please do let me know what you think. Be in touch with me or leave a review. Even if you hate it, leave a review, because that's what I want is conversation. That was my whole point.
Just one thing I just remembered, like the whole story vibe in the book. Have you read Princess by Jean Sasson by
No.
any chance?
Mm.
Okay, it's kind of old. It's about this Saudi princess, and she has written her story, like her experience growing up in a Saudi royal family, like as a girl.
Okay.
So this book, that story, it broke me. I was very small when I read it. I was like maybe 8 or 7. I wasn't supposed to be reading it. It was with my mom. I wasn't supposed to be reading it because it has a bit of explicit things here and there in it. But then I was reading for a long time. I was reading since I was 3. So I had run out of things to read. So I started reading things I was not supposed to. But this book kind of reminisces that vibe, that power of storytelling. And so I think that these stories will be repeated by people. I think that it's going to make a difference for a lot of people when they read it. So I hope that they do.
I'm very honored at your words. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to go read that book. But if it affected you and you felt the same way for this, that's a huge, huge, huge compliment to me. Thank you very much.
Okay, Meena, thank you so much for talking to us today. And thank you for writing the book again. Once again, I'll tell you for about the 100th time, but I
Thank
really did
you.
enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me again.
And thank you everyone for listening. And I hope you enjoyed hearing directly from Mina Sharif. And we will have her website links in the description so you can just go and check out her book, give her a little support, and you don't worry, it'll be like a investment in your own uh I don't know, entertainment, not just entertainment, like it'll just change you. It'll be something for you. So
Okay.
thanks everybody.